On the bench today, we don't usually do book reviews, but I'm telling you folks, for the record, and I'm telling you for the record, Aden Duale has written a masterpiece here. If you're a student of history
and politics,
this is the book to read. Last 10, 15 years are all in here, and you can know the intrigues, the betrayals, the backstabbing. It's all in here, and
yes.
You witnessed it yourself.
Oh, yes.
First-hand
account.
First-hand account.
Yes.
And you were saying President Kenyatta, when the referendum took place in 2005, right?
Yes.
Oranges and bananas.
Yes.
And then Kibaki fired a whole bunch of people.
Yes.
And the Oranges, having won that referendum, went on to form ODM.
Yes.
And Uhuru was part of that.
You know, in 2002, when Uhuru lost the election to President Kibaki, in big time, him and I think President William Ruto was the Secretary General of Kano with the late Mutula Kilonzo. They had about 62 members of parliament. So they formed a very strong opposition. Uhuru became the leader of opposition. He was the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, a very powerful committee during that time. Then the 2005 referendum, KANU and LDP and other parties joined together. Once we won the referendum, the banana and the oranges,
yes.
The orange won massively in all counties and all districts. And then ODM, the Orange Democratic Movement, it had some connotations with the Orange Revolution in Ukraine.
Yes.
Then they formed the ODM, and it was called ODM Kenya, okay? Which down the line, Kalonzo Musyoka afterwards humiliated. It's in the book, in Khadija grounds in Mombasa, when Odinga's supporters came with the hammer. You remember that time there was a hammer? Yeah. The whole field was hammer.
Correct.
So when Kalonzo stood to speak, everybody said hammer, and that was, you know, it was not far from the elections. And the supporters of ODMK were propelling the endorsement of Raila Odinga. Uhuru Kenyatta was part of the ODM brigade. Then all of a sudden, because of the tribal currency, he left ODM and went to support Uhuru Kenyatta. You can imagine the leader of opposition, the chair of Public Accounts Committee, went back to his community, to his region, and supported President Kibaki. I have been a supporter of Kibaki, but you know, I was not the leader of the opposition.
Right.
Then William Ruto and the whole of his brigade from Rift Valley and many other parts of the country, they remained in Kanu. Kanu collapsed, then ODM was formed. Okay? So when you look at the history of Uhuru Kenyatta, what he did in 2006, 2000, before the elections, is the same Uhuru Kenyatta, again recorded in my book, who in 2022, you know, the SATs, you know, a sitting president. It has never happened in the world, in the most democracies. A sitting president crossing over, leaving his party and his government, and inviting the opposition across the fence and say, I think you guys are better and you can lead the country. So in 2002, he left his party, Jubilee. In fact, he never left his party, just like the way he did to KANU after, when he was forming TNA. He cannibalized Jubilee, destroyed it, so that anybody else, including Aden Duale, cannot use Jubilee, and then supported Raila Odinga. When he was cannibalizing Jubilee, it had 175 members of parliament. It was the largest party in the region. 175. Today, I think they have less than, I think they are at the age of qualifying to be a parliamentary party. For you to be a parliamentary party, I think you must be 5% of the House. So they must have about 25 MPs.
28 or so.
28 MPs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a chapter on the Constitution of 2010, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
The story of the 2010 referendum and the new Constitution.
Yes.
And you were part of that whole Naivasha talks.
Yes.
How was that?
You know, the 2010 constitution making was difficult. And that is the only time, in this book even I have documented, is the only time I took a sabbatical leave from my bosom friend William Ruto. You remember William Ruto was opposing?
No.
Yes.
It was with the nose, yeah?
Me, I was, yes. And we agreed principally on a gentleman agreement that, you know, there are certain salient, important features captured in this draft constitution for my backyard, whether it is the Muslims, whether it is the Somali community and the pastoralist, the office of the Qadi's court, the element of devolution. Devolution was very, very dear to the people of the North. You know, they were victims of discrimination. They were victims of a centralized government. Somebody along Harambee Avenue, either office of the president or the national treasury, could decide for somebody in Marsabit, in Sololo, and he has never been there. So devolution, the Qadi's court were very dear to me and many people. So on a gentleman's agreement, I told William Ruto, I'll take a sabbatical leave from you. Go with your no. I wish you all the best. And I'll go to yes. But there were a number of us who were watermelon. You know, because now I have to say the truth, because it's written here.
Yes.
President Uhuru Kenyatta then was watermelon, John Michuki, myself. And I remember at one time we did a fundraising offline for the No Camp.
Right.
And,
for the No Camp.
For the No Camp. We did a fundraising for them. And after even they lost, they got about 2.5 million votes. William Ruto, you know, did very well. William Ruto is not sort of politician you can play around with. You know, as a Minister for Agriculture, one person against the whole government, the Prime Minister, the President, the Deputy President, the Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, and all of us, and with the state resources, William Ruto alone with his no-come, they raised about 2.5 million. Of course, they had serious points to raise to the people of Kenya. So when we won in that constitution, there were issues that led to the change of what the committee of experts proposed to the people of Kenya. When people went to Naivasha, a lot of political chess game happened. A lot of intrigues happened. And remember that time is when we had a serious divorce ourselves, the William Ruto's wing with the Odinga and his ODM party. So, and that was the time when, for the first time, at the altar of the constitution making, William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta were reading from the same script. I am a believer of a parliamentary system of government. And that is a time when Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto agreed in principle. Okay?
To a parliamentary system?
Yes. And you know, there was the team of ODM were divided between William Ruto faction and Raila Odinga's faction. So the William Ruto faction went to bed and agreed with the PNU faction of President Kibaki. And they agreed on, that's where the powers of the Senate were diluted. There are people who didn't wanted the Senate to be a powerful house. That is the time when the numbers of the counties were reduced to 47.
From
the guys who wanted 94.
What?
Yeah. That is the time. In fact, the proponents of a parliamentary system, which I was part of with ODM, the original counties were to be not more than the 11, 13. 8 of the former provinces, and then add big provinces like Rift Valley, divided into 2. That is when the minimum 15% money for devolution was compromised. And that is when the whole, history of Raila Odinga, of a parliamentary system of government, he gave in himself. And for the first time, because he was the prime minister of the Grand Coalition, Raila Odinga became very selfish. He realized that between a parliamentary system where the prime minister can be removed by the House through a vote, can be removed by his party, compared to a powerful presidential system. And you know, with the ICC on the head of William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta and the Western backing he had, Raila Odinga knew beyond reasonable doubt that 2013 he was becoming the president. So he said, wait a minute, why do I need a prime minister that members of parliament can remove you one afternoon? Why can't I go for a presidential system where the president is very powerful? So he fell into the trap of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. And he endorsed a presidential system of government. Little did he know that there was something called tyranny of numbers. You know? So the card of tyranny of numbers played. And Raila Odinga, in the 2013 general elections, again, he lost it fair and square. 2017, the same thing.
But 2017.
And even when he joined hands with President Uhuru in that BBI shenanigan, you know, Raila again Odinga, because he's a guy who trusts. You know the problem with Baba trusts. He trusts any scenario, any option. Even in BBI, you know, Raila, I thought, and I was the only one as a patron of the pastoral parliamentary group who argued for the case of a parliamentary system of government. And Jeff, let me tell you, these shenanigans of a post-election violence, this story of my votes have been stolen, will end with a parliamentary system of government. Why do I say so? The contest will go to the constituency level. Everybody will go and make sure he go and convinces the citizens and get more MPs on his corner.
Right.
So today, like UDA has 143 members of parliament. Automatically, UDA plus its coalition partners will produce the prime minister. So there was no way you will say post-election. You know the contestation, the threat to our national security is these presidential elections. Particularly, and I have nothing against him, particularly when you have somebody like Honorable Raila Odinga, who believes that every election he wins is the one who has won. So I think if we want for the stability of our country, I know it's a very hot discussion. Many people will disagree with me, but even for equality, if you want every community in our country to have the opportunity to lead our nation, it can only happen through a parliamentary system of government. Because I'll give you a good example. A pastoralist who is not known, who is a hustler, who joined politics in 2007, became the first majority leader of the Kenyan National Assembly. Why? My party then, TNA and URP, called Jubilee Coalition, saw the talent in me. And they said, this guy can be our leader of majority. They say if we are a parliamentary party, somebody from the coast, somebody from Turkana, somebody from Kisii, his party will see value in him and the talent and make him the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya.
Tell me something. 2007, who won?
No, 2007, we lost, and I've said it, but with a small margin. Yes.
ODM lost?
ODM lost. You know why do I say so? You know the problem is, in an election, even between me and you, if you win by even one vote, you are the winner. So there are people who say, oh, you know, we lost by 100, 200, election was stolen. You know what happened during that time? I was a founder member of ODM. And why we believed we won that elections? Because President Kibaki won by very little margin, about 200 votes.
200?
Yes.
Or 200,000?
200,000. 200,000, sorry. Why we believed ODM that we won that election is because we had more MPs than PNU. Mm-hmm. But you know, PNU was an amalgamation of parties. Yeah. Uhuru had about, I think, a dozen of MPs. There was PNU, There was Kalonzo Musyoka, Wiper. So if you equate ODM to PNU in 2007, then somebody will ask, how did ODM got 106 members of parliament and PNU got 47? And of course, you know, and that's why the new constitution has done the people of Kenya in terms of governance serious milestone. You know, that swearing in of President Kibaki at night in the dark, the post-election violence, all that gave all the indication that things were not right. And that's why today, some of the beauty about the current constitution is that no more swearing in the dark. You do it in public, you must gazette. It's a function of the military and the judiciary. It must be done before 2 a.m. The president must hand over the instruments of power. Very few countries in Africa have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a chapter here, a fascinating one, called Gone in 22 Minutes.
Oh, yes.
Go on.
Gone in 22 minutes.
Yes.
If you ask me, before we come to that, if you ask me which were the chapters that when you were writing, they were the most difficult, and which were the best. Of course, when I was writing about my early life,
Yes.
the schools I went to, the university, even ICC, I enjoyed writing.
You enjoyed that?
Yes. But the chapters that I have to drink more cups of tea. And I want to thank my family because they really supported me. When I was sitting with the payroll team and everything, we used to have mandazi and tea, and we sit for long hours. Was gone in 22 minutes. You know, you are the first leader of majority under a new constitution. You hold office for close to 8 years. I have never lost a bill in my entire 8 years. I am sure, I don't want to blow my trumpet. I am sure the people of Kenya and the staff of parliament and the members of parliament will judge my performance. Then all of a sudden, because of political expediency, because of betrayal, because of politics of backstabbing, you know, I think it's here. Before that, I had a 45-minute candid talk with Uhuru Kenyatta, the first PG.
Yeah.
You know, President convincing me that William Ruto is a bad guy. We must deal with him. You must join me. The first time I had the word spirit loyalty. President telling me, you know, the problem with you, my inner core, the deep state. That's a deep state. Yeah. Matiang'i, Kibicho, yes. Nancy Gitau, his brother,
yes.
Mhoho, a good friend of mine, but at that time, and many others were saying, they told him, you have cleaned the Senate of the Murkomens and the Kindikis, so the swamp was cleaned. Now the swamp in National Assembly was to be cleaned. The Chungwas and the Mbarire, you know, very respectable leaders, Mbarire and Washiali. And they told him, you know, you are a friend to Duale, but you are doing all this, you're wasting your time. The snake of William Ruto is in the house. So the president called me, and the people are waiting in the PG, in the tent. Talks about how William Ruto, it's the first time, you know, because over the years I was asking me, what is the problem with William Ruto? He says, no, everything is okay. That day he opened his heart. He said, this guy is bad. So you are not going to have a spirit loyalty. You must join me. And these are the things, blah, 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 blah.
What did you tell him?
No. I mean, after he finished, I told him, have you finished? He said, yes. I told him, you know what, I joined this coalition through William Ruto. I am a founder member of URP. And when William Ruto became the deputy president, the second highest powerful office was the leader of majority. And in the coalition agreement of TNA and URP, leader of majority of National Assembly was ours. The Speaker of the Senate was URP. So William Ruto magnanimously gave me the leader of majority. Yeah. Outside that, I worked for the two of you and our coalition and our government. William Ruto has a history with my family, with my children, with my brothers. And I told him as a Muslim, I'm sorry. Uhuru was looking at me, Because, he has poured out his... He said, I told him, I am ready to relinquish the office of the leader of majority. I better stay with William Ruto.
That's what you said?
Yes. So we left. He said, okay, let's go to the PG. We went to the PG.
Was he angry?
No, I think he was shocked. And that's why in my book I say, you must be counted. When your friend needs you, you must stand tall. So,
Yeah.
And I think I had to make a decision as a Muslim. So when we went to the PG, everybody else was replaced. And the president was mum on my position as the leader of majority. When I went back to my office, the 411 came and they said Duale retained, the rest have been, the swamp has been cleared. Then in the evening, the so-called deep state and Kanini Kega and the other shenanigans, and many, even some from my region, they went to some room and they said, Mr. President, we have to remove Duale. And then he told them, okay, go find a way to remove him. Then the fake signature collection came. And let me go on record. I had friends. One of the friends who called me and told me, leader, I think these guys are collecting signatures. They are fake. They are working behind Uhuru. I mean, Uhuru is part of it. Why can't you resign? It was General Kameru of Nice.
The general called?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
What?
So he told me, man, you just call it a day. So I told him, I'm going to think about it. But when I consulted my friend William Ruto, he said, why do you have to resign? Let them remove you. Because, we're using the politics of victim. And then the 22 minutes came. It was during the height of COVID. And, I think 2 months later, I lost my mom.
Oh.
Okay? So at the height of the COVID, Uhuru was supposed to address that PG at KICC virtually. So when he saw, because you guys were streaming it live,
correct.
When he saw William Ruto there, Uhuru came running from State House. And then, he came, it's in my book. He spoke for 22 minutes. The whole thing was 22 minutes. But I think 15 minutes, let me be fair to him, he gave tributes to my leadership. He said, this guy is good, blah, blah, blah. But the PG has decided. And within 22 minutes, I walked out of KICC as, again, back to the back bench. So I told you I was in the front bench as an assistant minister.
Yes. Tinga
sacked me, I went to the back bench.
Yeah.
Then I came back to the front bench as the leader of majority. Then 22 minutes, 8 years.
Back to the back.
Back. But then I became a ranking member. So imagine your 8 years work and investment comes down the drain in 22 minutes.
Were you shocked? Were you? How did you feel?
No. I was expecting it, and my family was prepared. Yeah. I'm a religious man. I think I served the longest. The only person who has served the longest than me in parliamentary leadership during this time is Speaker Muturi, who did 10 years. Mm-hmm. So I think I did 8 years.
It was good enough.
Of course I was, and I was the first leader of majority. I mean,
that's a big feat.
Yeah,
that's a big.
But they all went in 22 minutes.
22.
And then in that meeting,
yes.
William Ruto was asked 3 times by the president to speak in this book, and he refused.
Completely.
He refused, and in the evening I asked him why, and he said, "I cannot be part of a meeting that was meant to slaughter and has slaughtered one of my key friends and allies." And that night, I can't remember, he did the best of the tweets on my behalf. I remember that when I read that tweet, I went home and slept like a baby. It was the most nourishing, refreshing tweet a deputy president and a friend can do for you. In fact, he never did for William, for when Professor Kindiki and Murkomen were replaced. So I felt that I think he felt it, what I went through, we went through as a group.
There's another very interesting chapter, War on Terror. Fighting terror as a government insider, a Muslim and a Somali, when national security collides with public interest.
Yes, this is one of the chapters that I think also when I was writing, it was very sad. Number one, during my leadership, as a member of parliament in Garissa, I came face to face with serious threats of terror. Many innocent people were killed in Garissa before the university attack, in church attacks. So the epicenter of terror in northern Kenya was more in Garissa town. You remember the 148, may their soul rest in peace, of innocent students who were killed.
Yeah.
So I was a victim of terror. I lost friends, I lost my constituencies, dear ones. And more so, the target mainly was, again, my supporters who are from the Christian community. Then I am here, the leader of majority, and I have to balance. And then there was the swaps in Isli, the way that Somali, every time there's a terror attack, the Somali community in Isli and everywhere become victims. That because Al-Shabaab, the rank and the file majority are Somalis, so all Somalis are terrorists. It's a very, very bad misnomer when a section of citizens become victims of criminals. I mean, there were Mungikis.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no blanket on Kikuyu community. The same. Every community has criminal elements. So there was swaps, there was the detention of thousands of people in Kasarani, you remember. There was a raid on the Somali forex bureaus and hawalas,
Yep.
their businesses. There was serious profiling of the Somali community. And here, it's me who is a serious insider in government, a key leader within government, a key leader in parliament that must enact laws to protect our country. So it was the most difficult time for me to balance between national security, public interest vis-a-vis the Bill of Rights that the people, the Muslim community enjoys, and making sure that our country is safe. So I had to balance.
Yeah.
And we had, particularly the carryover of the security leadership of President Kibaki, had a bad mentality. I don't want to name them, those who were head of the intelligence, the head of the military, the head of the office of the president. They had a mentality, even before these terror attacks, they had a mentality of profiling the Somali community. So at one time, when we were dealing with the security laws, they decided to bypass me and use the Committee of Security to prepare the bill. And I remember I was called to State House, this is my book, and I told the president, okay, I am with you, but we should not use these security laws to discriminate and profile a certain section, critical section of the Kenyan society. You have said today now, terror is across all tribes, all religions. I mean, what is happening in Shakahola?
That's right. Yeah.
So radicalization is in every religion. Right. So the chapter but later we had a compromise. We said we must secure our country. And I think the security laws that was a product of a compromise between government, human rights organization, leaders, and all of us, which even Jamia lawyers agreed. I think ultimately, if you ask me, has made to a large extent our country very safe. I am proud of the security laws, the product of the compromise. The few that we did not agree that were touching on the Bill of Rights, I want to thank the judiciary. They annulled those sections of the law.
And as Defense CS, you're seeing more the country, the homeland is secure?
Of course, from external, I can tell you that I have no any other business now. The president will deal with the economy. The rest will deal with other things. I think we have a competent Kenya Defense Forces. We have a competent Homeland Security. We have special forces. We have a robust intelligence, both in the military and the National Intelligence Service. And we are 24/7 watching over our country to make sure that Kenyans sleep.
Intelligence wasn't so intelligent at Shakahola?
I think the internal intelligence, and not only that, even the provincial administration, even the political leadership of that area, even the Nyumba Kumi, I'm sure will be asked questions. And I'm happy the Commission of Inquiry, led by Lady Justice Lesit, must go to the bottom. I mean, Kenyans must be given answers.
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, how does one individual called Mackenzie convinces people to starve, and then does mass graves, and then nobody's aware? I don't think that is true.
There's no way.
I think the story is bigger than Mackenzie. It's a whole industry, and I think the commission is the right thing to find out.
Former Prime Minister doesn't agree with the commission, though.
No, you know the former Prime Minister. I watched him the last 2 weeks. He talks with a lot of respect. He's my elder, and he's a man I have a lot of respect for. But he talks from both sides of his mouth. You know, at one time he was saying, and a bit disgusting, that the bishops, the Odera and the Mackenzie, are boys from State House, that the president is their leader. But I saw him dining with Odera the other day and saying Odera is a good guy.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, between us, I mean, the former Prime Minister must differentiate between national security interests, what is national, from playing to local politics. I mean, he can't. I mean, this is about the lives of the people of Kenya. Thousands are missing their people. The former Prime Minister did not talk about extrajudicial killing in last administration when he had a handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta. He didn't talk about it. I mean, the former Prime Minister, historical credentials, human rights credentials, democracy, were all soiled and destroyed the moment he went to bed with the President Uhuru Kenyatta. It was public debt, extrajudicial killing, destruction of the economy, looting of the economy, okay?
Yeah.
A political persecution, the use of the criminal justice system. All these were done when Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga were running government the last 4 years.
Speaking of looting, there's a chapter here, fascinating one, called Railway to Nowhere.
In fact, this chapter,
yes.
There is a common denominator. You know, every chapter, there is somebody who is mentioned. And the other night, my good friend Jimmy Wanjigi called me and said, when am I getting my book? And I said, please, I will send you a signed copy. On the chapter on railways, Maina Wanjigi is mentioned. And unfortunately, I have to ask for his apology.
Maina or Jimmy?
I mean, Jimmy Wanjigi, I'm sorry, Jimmy Wanjigi.
Yes.
Jimmy Wanjigi played a very big role in the election of and merger of URP and TNA in 2013. You know, Maina Wanjigi is a very sharp statecraft. I wish he was in the US. That's why he can fit very well.
Yeah.
So one morning, you know, President Uhuru Kenyatta summoned me and Kipchumba Murkomen. And he told us, you know, you guys, there's a chopper standby. Go to Nyeri. You can imagine. And there is a function in Kanini Kega's constituency. A Mau veteran who died the week before was being buried. And you must go and say it in that rally that Jimmy Wanjigi is the man behind all the story that is about this SGR. You remember when Alfred Keter and all these people were criticizing the SGR. And so we went because of loyalty. Sometimes loyalty is a crazy thing. We were loyal to the commander-in-chief
Right.
and the president then.
Yes.
We took breakfast with him. We boarded the helicopter. We went to that Mau veteran who was being buried. And we said, Jimmy Wanjigi is a guy behind stoppage of the blah, blah, so many things. And at night when I came back home and you guys did it in the news and Jimmy called me and said, what have I done, my friend? So, but Railway to Nowhere is a very interesting chapter. It's the most expensive. SGR is a very sad story. It's the most expensive railway. Is, I think, overpriced. Is where serious corruption took place in its tendering and payment, of course, with the Chinese. But you take a chopper or drive, this railway going, which was supposed to go to Malaba, to Kisumu, this railway is ending somewhere. In a very wild place, in remote place, it stops. Have you ever seen a railway stopping in the bush?
And there's nothing beyond? Nothing.
Later I was told, I don't know whether it's true, I'm told it's ending in somebody's farm. I don't know whether it is whether it's Uhuru's farm. But even last week I overflew. The railway line goes, and then it goes to, like, it ends like in Chakahola Forest or Boni Forest. Then what happened? The president says, all cargo must go by the railway, not trucks.
Right.
So people asked, so where is our cargo going? Our cargo is going to Uganda, but it's going to certain sections of the port of Mombasa, you know, were shifted from Mombasa port to Naivasha, to where the railway is ending. So it's a very serious chapter in my book, from the cost of the railway to the policy making of the railway to where it is ending in somebody's farm. So I felt Kenyans, and how Jimmy Wanjigi became a victim of his internal war with the President Kenyatta, where some of us were involved. I mean, Jimmy was a friend. In fact, Jimmy was on the side of URP when we were negotiating with the TNA. Mm-hmm. I don't think the cabal around President Kenyatta in 2013 wanted Jimmy. And Jimmy was more from our side. But so the railway, I think, now you hear about the railway, the title is not there, the port of Mombasa is mortgaged. There are many, many stories flying around. Mm. But the chapter on the railway to nowhere is a very interesting chapter. Those who are watching me, they should read that chapter.
What about the live wire you touched?
Why are you asking me? No, let Kenyans read that chapter.
Okay.
That chapter is about the NYS scandal.
Correct.
Yeah. The way Uhuru, her PS, the way she involved us. You know, I've never been to NYS. The only time I see NYS is when I'm driving to my constituency in Garissa on the highway. Yeah. There's an NYS. Yeah. Then the other connotations I have with NYS, I went to NYS before I joined the university. I was part of the cohort, Ruto Mzee Moi.
Yes. So
the whole story of NYS, and you remember at one time during the by-elections for Kericho senatorial after Charles Keter joined government, and then we had a by-election in Malindi when Kazungu became minister. And one evening, we just finished our campaign rallies in Malindi. We were with the deputy president. We were about to board and we were having a cup of tea. Then I see 411. And Uhuru says before a parliamentary committee that Aden Duale is a recipient and part of the proceeds of the NYS scandal. Before I landed in Nairobi, I did 11 tweets on Uhuru. And in the morning, President Uhuru Kenyatta was in Israel. I called him, and he said, I'm on a highway. I told him, listen, you'll see what Uhuru has done to me. I'm going to do a press conference. And he told me, proceed. He even didn't stop me. And I did a press conference, which had a narrative, which I said that Minister Uhuru, I cannot be your human shield. And you have touched a live wire. I'm going to take a sabbatical leave from the office of the leader of majority. Those are the words I've used. But that press conference extract is in the book. Yeah. So, but I don't want to discuss. I mean, NYS is, and you know, Anne now is on our side. She's my buddy. You know, when I was looking at this book, I said, now what am I going to tell my sister? But anyway, I think it's something people to read.
There's no such thing as political enemies, is there?
It's one of the things I've done in my book. that, and I think for those who are in that camp, because today if you look for a clip of mine against William Ruto in my entire political life, you not get it. They're all positive. But you know, and that's why I say that we need political hygiene in our politics. You know, today, you cannot be on the other side abusing Jeff Koinange or Aden Duale. Then the next minute, because of your political interest and greed, you are with Jeff or you're with Duale. You know, we must have some political hygiene. We must have some principle. We must have some ideological opinions that you respect the ideological opinion of Jeff, you respect mine, and the world moves. So this, our country needs to move from that. You know, the forest can change, but the players, the monkeys are the same.
We keep hearing that.
Yes.
I think we're going to go to some reactions. This book is just too good now. If we talk more about it, people wouldn't buy it now.
Yes, no.
Let's go to the magic.
Please, yes. In fact, we want people to buy.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, lots of tweets coming in thick and fast. Oh, by the way, what is this?
This is Moi University, and I was with this guy. He was my junior.
With Aden Duale?
Yes, he was my junior.
Oh, wow.
And I remember the day he came as first-year student. It was very cold and raining in Geria, on Moi University. I brought him to my room, gave him a cup of tea and some loaves of bread. I'm sure if he's watching, he knows that day.
Nice.
Well, you say a hustler.
Hustler. All right, Mugasia says, ask CS Duale if he has read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, The Monk by Robin Sharma, and Joe Goebbels' Principles. Does he believe the KK regime is perfect, or will somebody else in the future write a book about deceit in KK government?
No, I've only read The Art of War. It's a very, very interesting book by Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
I think many people will judge the KK administration positively and will write about its shortcomings. I can't say KK government will be 100%. But I think under the leadership of William Ruto, it will be much better than Uhuru Kenyatta's government. Maybe close to or better than President Kibaki.
Oh.
Yeah, President Kibaki, yes.
Okay. Bukusu001 says, Jeff, ask Duale if the book has also captured the part when Uhuru and Ruto told Mudavadi they will leave the presidency for him in 2013. That was later termed as Madimoni. A good read it must be.
Tell him there's a whole chapter.
There's a whole
deal
chapter.
Or no deal.
That's right.
The chapter on deal or no deal. It's about the whole of that story.
Amonk Meli says, ask Duale, how did he meet with William Ruto? Why did he choose to follow him all his political journey?
We met in ODM. We became victims of Baba. And I think we found that we share more than and agree more than differences. And William Ruto, I'm not praising him because he's my boss. I think he's a decent politician. He keeps friends. He respects friends. And he's a man who is very consultative in decision-making.
Okay. Sirma Law says, ask Aden Duale, as the Minister of Defense, what mitigating factors are in place in bandit-prone areas to provide long-lasting effects? Secondly, what role does unemployed professionals from this area like me have to play to remedy the banditry vice?
I think, Jeff, you'll call me one day to speak about the
whole banditry.
Yes, there are many things we are doing. Even this week, we have started building schools, renovating schools, and we have taken special teams to deal with the bandits. That's why, these days there are no more much noise.
Is it true there's politics involved? Are there politicians involved?
Oh, banditry is a huge industry, involving even butcheries in Nairobi. It's a whole chain. But I want to assure the people of Kenya that the William administration is the administration that will end banditry in North Rift and in the North.
You're saying that on JKLIVE?
I am saying it, and take the date and the time.
For the record?
For the record.
Charles Caris says, what would Honorable Duale be in an Uhuru memoir? A chapter or a bookmark?
It depends on who writes. If Uhuru writes, I'm sure he'll have 2-3 chapters on me.
D.A. Coraje says, where can we get your book in Uganda?
Oh, yes. Very soon we will link with one of the biggest bookstores in Uganda, and we will deliver.
By the way, your friends at Prestige Bookshop in Nairobi,
yes,
they can deliver to Uganda.
Fine. I'll talk to Prestige.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff.
Ahmed, a good friend of mine at Prestige, they can deliver just about
from
anywhere.
us.
Okello Mwalimu says, from a snippet, Honorable Duale's memoir seems to be fairly balanced. How I wish many more leaders could follow in the footsteps of the good CS. However, I'd have been more keen on reading his memoir after retiring from active politics. He's a bit conflicted at the moment. In fact, your very last line in the book, very last line.
Yes.
You say, I was now a minister in a sensitive security docket. I had secrets to keep. I had to stop writing my memoirs. Right?
Yes, even when I was the leader of majority, I mean, I was a custodian of very secretive and confidential documents, which are not in my memoir. So I know what to give, and I know what is within the secrecy. But now that I'm a minister, I'm no longer in the legislature. They'll wait for me when I retire. Maybe I'll write a book on culture. I'm a camel farmer. You know, I can write about the camels.
You can write about the camels.
Yeah. How they are.
Yes.
How long the gestation period is. The size of a flock. The history of the camels.
I think your politics is not over yet.
Yes.
There's still a chapter. Gigzula Moja says, Jeff, if there is any politician who dissects delicate matters without a scintilla of fear, is Honorable Duale. As a fellow author, he was the chief guest during my book launch. I do not doubt his words or his writings, a brave politician with deep-rooted nomadic roots. You were there at his
yes.
Gigzula Moja?
Yes.
Nice. Waziri, it's been fascinating, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I hope
the launch
tonight,
the launch is
tomorrow at 5.
Okay.
The president will be there.
Yep.
And many people will speak. I've invited Isaac Ruto because he's a centerpiece in this book, particularly. You know, Isaac is the one who wrote the URP constitution.
Oh.
Yeah. Isaac in the 10th parliament until he became a governor. Up to the time I told him, he pesa siya nini. Now, I invited him to speak tomorrow.
Nice.
And he was telling me, atasema kesho, hii serikali ni ya mama yetu. Yeah, I just talked to him, he's in Bomet. I told him to drive.
Yes.
So, Speaker Muturi will be there, Speaker Wetangula will be there, the majority leaders will be there, there are many other Kenyans will be there, diplomats will be there.
You didn't invite President Kenyatta?
President Kenyatta, you know, of late, after I saw how he was behaving at the Jubilee offices, I can't invite him. He can disrupt my function. And you know, he's my buddy. He's my buddy, so I cannot remove him forcibly. Yeah. So I told him I'm going to deliver this book to him and see how I can help him, because I'm a pastoralist and I've got, I think, enough sheep in one of my farms. I want to tell him, please, let's donate. I can donate. You know, when you are a livestock farmer.
Yes.
When the animal becomes sick or you lose an animal, you feel like you lost a child. It's very sentimental.
Yes.
So I can imagine President Uhuru, when he saw his ships being loaded, being taken.
Being sold for 1,000.
He felt it. So as a fellow pastoralist,
yes.
You know he's a pastoralist.
Correct.
Pastoralists always, even during the dry season, when one pastoralist, cows or camels are not lactating, there's lack of milk in the house, the neighbor brings milk. So you know he's a pastoralist, not by birth. He's a pastoralist by association.
Right.
So I think I'll lead the pastoralist team including President William Ruto, who is a pastoralist, so that we go visit one of our own and see what we can do about his ships. But tomorrow, I want him to watch my launch from the television. No, you know, I could have invited him, but I'm scared. He gets annoyed when he sees Rigiji and Ichungwa, and he disrupts my meeting. On a light touch.
On a light touch.
On a light touch. He's my buddy, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the record, great book.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Fascinating. Yeah. It's a page turner, folks.
So you need to read my book. I read your 2 books.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Will you sign one for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Are you still Jeff? Oh, you have changed name? No. You know, maybe you joined Bishop Mackenzie.
You still have jokes, huh? You still have jokes.
Jeff.
Wow. Fascinating book, folks. For the record, it's going to be available. It is available, actually. Prestige Bookshop in the CBD. It's going to be all over, folks. Nuria Books all over. It's going to be on Amazon real soon. Check it out. Buy a copy. If you're a student of history and politics, check this one out, folks. For the record, Aden Duale. And it's not over yet. We're going to take a break, come back. We still have sports news. Waziri, thank you so much.
Jeff Kwenange.
Ashkuru sana. You say, thank you for your trust. Keep reading. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Asante ndugu.
Thank you.
Nashkuru sana. Back in a moment.